Dr. Karin von Hippel.
Thank you. Thank you to the World Affairs Council and to all of you for welcoming me here today. I do give a lot of public talks now all over the place, and I have to say this is, for me, the most intimidating audience because I have far too many friends and family members here, especially people who knew me when I was sort of, let's just say, a little bit obnoxious maybe and younger. So, but thank you for welcoming me here today. I wanted to talk a little bit about the root causes of terrorism. It's kind of a controversial subject to talk about. I started working on this area. Actually, I became an expert on terrorism really on September 12th, 2001. Like other people, I got dragged into it because of my own experience in places like Somalia and Kosovo. And I was asked by some of the donors, like the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the Danes, the UN, and others, to help come up with ways that development assistance can work to fight the root causes of terrorism. So I started looking at it back then, and that's what I really want to talk about is some of the work I've done in this area. I think, and I'll try to speak for about 25 minutes so we have time for discussion, so hopefully I won't go on for too long. But I think most people here, when we think about having an effective counter-terrorist or counterinsurgency campaign, we like to think about a comprehensive, holistic approach. So on the one side, you deal with the symptoms, and that's really where you bring the police, the military, intelligence, legal, financial, and other actors in to try to interdict terrorists, to capture them before they commit crimes, hopefully, and often to investigate afterwards. And that's really where the bulk of our energy has gone since September 11th. That's really where most of the activity has been focused on this. Of course, we also need to focus on the causes, and really on this area, unfortunately, we haven't dedicated as much energy to this as we probably should have. Although today that has started to change. Now you will hear very senior members of the U.S. government and the military saying that terrorists can't be defeated by military means alone, that we need to fight root causes, and we need to fight root causes in the same places where terrorists live, breed, and train. And this is really because terrorist groups have really been able to expand their reach and their influence because they build and expand their constituencies. And it's a term that Professor Louise Richardson at Harvard calls the enabling environment. Another term is called complicit society. And what this means are these are potential sympathizers who are not only in the Arab and Muslim world, but they also live in Europe and North America. Now, many of these people may not themselves use violence, but they either sympathize with the arguments and the platforms of the terrorists, or they're intimidated into silence. And over the last seven plus years since 9/11, we've seen the Al-Qaeda group really expand this constituency of sympathizers. I think most of us have read about polls in the Arab and Muslim world that show a lot of anti-American sentiment. It's increased over the last 7 years. Some of these same polls also show that Al-Qaeda is viewed as a legitimate resistance movement by a lot of people in places where we hope that they don't view Al-Qaeda like that. And this is because they've been much better than we have at targeting the enabling environment. They're much better than we are so far in the battle of ideas. Just to give you one example from Afghanistan, where I was about a month ago, before a suicide bomber sets off their belt in a market somewhere, there'll be two cameramen also in the market filming this right before it happens. They immediately burn it onto a DVD and they put it on the web. And so they're much quicker than we are, and we only recently just started to have our own strategic communications capacity to try to fight back in this way. So really, for us to succeed against this terrorist movement, what we need to do is we need to win over this wider community so that they also oppose terrorists in their communities, in their cities, in their states, and even in the virtual world where many of the battles are taking place. I think you can think of it, in a sense, you can think of it as concentric circles. So in the middle circle, you have the hardcore terrorists. And I guess, for me, I'm less worried about that individual terrorist because it's always going to be very difficult to try to stop everybody committing a crime. But around them, in the next concentric circle, you have the enabling environment. And that's the community that we need to win over so that they oppose them. Once they try to oppose them in the communities, then you can go to standard policing and other surveillance techniques that will work much better. I think, people who are